Fucking Elsa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of the fully rendered fucking Elsa podcast.
Oh my god! Did they hear me?
They did. They did.
I did not sign up for that podcast. I'd like us to check contracts again.
It would still have Warhammer in it. Don't worry, there'll still be Warhammer.
What if it's Warhammer with Elsa?
Elsa just brings in an entire new army, and it's just ice mages. That's it. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. But yes, hello everyone. Welcome. Apologies that we weren't able to film an episode 2 weeks ago or go live 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was a chocolate fountain, but that's all the imagery I'll give you. So yeah, I wasn't able to do it.
He had ligma.
I had the ligma these nuts. So yes,
that's very hot.
But apologies. How are we both doing? Like, Pulp, have you been up to much? Obviously, you've been working a lot.
Yeah, I started working again. I was just telling the guys, and I've been running a lot lately. And I've started streaming again, so that's kind of nice. Just come back and say hi to everyone.
Get back into the vibe.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to fill out like what's good and what's not. But I've just been having fun lately.
That's cool. How about you, Peachy?
Playing some Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm good. My chat was asking, I hope Brian took the time to play Last Epoch.
I did. We'll be talking about it later. Fret not, I've got you covered.
They got you. Don't worry.
I got you.
What was the question?
How have you been doing? What have you been up to these past
pretty
few
good.
weeks?
I hang on. Where is it?
He's acquiring something for audio only.
Can you see this little mini in here that happens to have
Oh my
paint
god!
on it?
That teeny tiny mini.
This one here. So my girlfriend was over, and I got her painting.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Oh,
We're a Warhammer family now.
I love that.
One mini. She's done base coats on one mini. I'm like, yes, let's get you a 2,000 point army of 1,000 suns.
Did she enjoy it then? Was she like, "Ooh, this is better than I thought"?
She was just painting away for 2 hours, just chilling.
Proud of her work.
That's so cute. I love that. I just imagine butt to butt painting.
Well, I was just sort of like just giving her some tips on
the image I had in my head. It was just literally just their asses together. Just
that's what I was doing. Like
facing the other direction, just painting, and just like maybe Peachy gets up to get a drink, and Safi's there like, my butt's cold.
I'm thinking, think like the yoga child pose, just butts up and then just going in hunched over painting.
See, that's an entirely different thing now.
Is perfectly fine, but that's not what actually.
I had a very innocent image in my head. I don't know about you.
Mine was full Human Centipede Hobby Edition.
Why is it brown? Well, there's a reason for that.
No, it was great. It was wholesome and it was cute.
I'm sure it was.
We went to my favorite hobby shop, which is a giant hobby shop. It's called
Costco.
Firestorm Games, and they have like a tournament section in the bottom floor. Up top they have a little hobby section with like a bar and stuff, and out the back they have like tables for D&D and stuff. And they were all rammed on the day we went. And I might have bought some plastic and some paint, but she also bought some. This is Starfinder, which is the Pathfinder, the sci-fi Pathfinder.
Right.
And yeah, that's what these are. And she was like, I want it. I'm like, okay. So I immediately got my wallet and I'm like, just buy the minis.
I would imagine that's a pretty expensive hobby to get into though, right?
Oh,
well, yeah. So she did it here because obviously I've got.
Well, yeah, obviously. What are you doing? You're giving her the gateway drug.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I am.
Absolutely.
You gave her that little sniff.
First one is
and now she's gonna
Absolutely.
that's the worst, but it's the best.
This one is free.
Right,
It's the worst.
The Warhammer paints, the little pots of paints, how much do they cost nowadays just for one?
I don't know because I don't often buy Warhammer paints. I've got a couple. But it's
What
like
kind of paints do you use?
£3 to £4 for a thing of paint.
That's actually a really good question because I don't know much about painting. I have like really shaky hands, so I never even tried it.
Everyone has shaky hands. Everyone does when you start painting. So you can paint.
so.
There are people with motor control that can paint as well. You just need to brace yourself, and you can get.
I have an
something going.
excuse. But what kind of paint do you use for for
well,
the
they're
miniatures.
artist grade paints, so they're not.
Yeah, I
you know, when you
imagine
go to a
so.
craft shop, it's not quite that paint. Those paints are fine if you're doing like terrain
Like,
or
so they're not
scenery or stuff.
acrylic.
Yeah, they are acrylics.
They are acrylic.
but
Okay, they're just a
very
higher
high
quality.
in pigment.
Okay.
And like a bottle is like between, I don't know, £3 and £4 depending on where you're getting it from. Obviously, you can spend more on paint. But like you're painting something this big, so this bottle of paint will last you a long time.
Right.
Unless you've got a gargantuan army, because that thing that big becomes 1,000 things that big, kind of thing. But yeah,
I've got a 1,000-point army
expensive.
sitting there ready to game, so I'm hyped for that.
There was no horn. I'm disappointed. There we go. Who's ready? Who's ready to game, Chad? Like a true gamer.
Uh-oh.
Should we start with...
My dog growled right when you did that, and I know she can't hear you, but it sounded like you pissed her off.
Oh, you don't like gamers.
Damn.
Yeah, I moved her because of how many times she's gotten a little riled up. So her bed is right next to me, to like my left, so it's easier for me to keep an eye on her.
Right, makes sense.
And I just look over, and she's just like, her ears on the side. She looks like Dobby sometimes, just growling when the air horn goes off.
Might be worth getting like an extra camera just to point it at the dog bed.
The funny thing is that was originally the plan before we did the Kevin cam.
Right.
So it ended up being the husband cam instead.
Husband cam. I like it.
She moves a lot. She doesn't stay in one place. She kind of she likes to go in the bedroom. She really isolates. So I don't want to like put a camera on her, especially because it would have to be in a completely different room.
All that pressure
Otherwise,
to perform and
Too much limelight for little Ray. But should we jump into the first topic, which is something I've not played yet, so do please keep spoilers to a minimum, because I'm looking forward to it. But Final Fantasy VII.
So good news for you. I'm only in chapter 4.
Okay.
Which only is where because there's the 2 demos. There was the first one. What was the first one?
In a place. I haven't played them because I don't have a PS5.
Oh, it was the Nibelheim.
Right.
Nibelheim. Yeah, and then the second one was in the Junon, which is like the Junon area with the Chocobo. So literally, I have not even gotten to the boss that's at the end of the second demo. Right. So really, like, I don't really know what's going on with the story. Hasn't been too many story elements that popped up. One in particular, I won't mention at all.
Did you play the original Final Fantasy?
Yeah, I streamed it when it came out during COVID. No. I think it was maybe like a month or 2 after it came out, because I was sick with COVID.
I mean, like,
then
OG Final Fantasy VII, the original.
Oh, OG Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. Okay, so full transparency.
She had COVID before it was cool.
No, I meant I thought you meant like the remake, and that one I streamed.
Yeah.
I think I was planning on streaming the original, but my controversial but brave opinion is of the 3 on the PlayStation, that's my least favorite. I don't dislike it. I played 8 first, then 9, but 9's my favorite of the 3.
Right.
And 7's just kind of always been there. It's not my absolute favorite of the franchise. And I think part of it was like I always started the game and I never got around to beating it for the longest time. So I've only beaten it once. I've never gotten like too into it. I can't stand the chocobo breeding. I always hate
That's right. It is a little laborious, and unless unless you've got the guide. The thing with the OG Final Fantasy VII is if you didn't have the guide, you would miss a lot. Like there were key story moments you could just bypass, like finding out.
A lot of RPGs back then too were like that, because I remember being a kid going to like the video store and going to pick up like the Brady game guides or Prima guides. I know we have the Final Fantasy VII strategy guide, because cute little anecdote, when my husband and I first started dating, he gave it to me and then he took it back.
We're married now. Give it back.
We're married now. So
he fascinated a woman with a guidebook for Final Fantasy VII.
That's how you get a girl. But it's like, what his is mine, and what's mine is also mine. So
true.
But so I did play it, and so I can see there are a lot of differences. I don't want to get too into the story whatsoever. But I have been focusing a lot on the side content. I just did the Fort Condor stuff, and it's such a treat to see like the visuals they did for that.
Yeah.
And but I hate the Fort Condor side mini game, even the original. So I was not. I just like sped through that. It's been kind of cool. Like it's big. There's a lot to look around. Like every time I go into a new area, I kind of get a little overwhelmed because I don't know where to go first. But I just cleared 2 areas, the grasslands and the Junon area.
Okay.
So gameplay wise, it's great. They added this synergy. What was it? Synergy system. It was introduced in the DLC. So for the original remake, and they brought that back,
where you can do like combo moves with other characters, basically. Yeah.
And they streamlined a lot of like the UI and everything. So instead of upgrading, at least to what I understand, I'm still trying to figure out some of the mechanics with like you don't have to like you still have to max out the weapons like in the first original or the first remake, but you don't have like, you know, when there was like their own little skill tree for each one. It was kind of bizarre where you go in and it's like there was almost like a sphere grid for each weapon you got as you upgraded up, as you level them up. It seems like they just streamlined that. So, which is a lot nicer.
And I'm right in saying that you can like swap out characters mid-combat as well, because they're like supposed to be behind you watching, and then you can be like, oh, I need to bring Barrett in, so you can bring him in.
If you can do that, I haven't figured it out yet. Right. I know you can go before you go into combat, you can switch. You just hit X and then just hit like R1 or R2, I believe, and then or R1 or L1, and you could switch like the loadout.
Right.
So I'm always a boys club. I'm Barrett in Red 13. I gotta get my boys together.
Yeah, that's who I played with in my original playthrough of the OG one. I always had those 3. And then I got older, went through puberty, and then Tifa ended up replacing Barrett. And then I was just like, yeah, Tifa.
Tifa's so much fun to play.
Yes.
I just love playing as Tifa. But I haven't gone into Junon yet, so I don't know what's gonna happen there, like story-wise. But there have been like a lot of fun like little callbacks. Like I just went and there's these proto relics, and I'm not, but you have to do like 4 different tasks. Like the first one's just trying to, it's interesting where you go around, like you go one area, you do whatever the mini game or fight there, and then you go to another area, and it's like this like sequential side quest, and you get this relic. And the first one was like you get a call back to like the big Gar section where like the bandits that you fought show back up, and I was like, okay, I thought those guys were goofy as hell. I loved it.
Yeah, I did enjoy that in remake. The music in that area was really sick as well.
I love the jazz, like just so much trumpet and saxophone. It's great.
Yeah.
So far I'm having a lot of fun. I think I've gotten like 12 or 13 hours in, and all I've been doing primarily is just side content.
Yeah, so
I'm only in chapter 4.
I've been avoiding reviews because obviously they tend to be quite spoiler heavy.
I went in blind.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the last like reveal trailer thing they did, because Squeenix as a habit seemed to go like, oh, we released the game next week. Here's a fuck ton of spoilers about it. So I even avoided that. Yeah, but I've seen a lot of first impressions, and the first impressions. I never watch the trailers as they come out. I really because for that very reason, there's always spoilers, and then I tend to avoid social media a little bit when a big release like this comes out, because I went on and like there's some YouTubers that I follow and like immediately like the day of, or like even on like Twitch, you go on and there's already people streaming it before the game came out, and it's like. I think there was like one on the front page that my husband got upset about, because he was like, I almost got spoiled. Yeah, 100%.
So thankfully I've been avoiding as much as possible, and I've gone in almost like completely blind. So I don't know anything about the story. Nothing's been spoiled for me. And it's been just kind of fun to I've been streaming it the past few days, and I'm literally just sitting back, just doing chocobo stuff. The chocobos are my favorite so far.
That's cool. Yeah, because like
you're gonna really enjoy it.
I've seen a lot of like first impressions, or people just giving an anecdotal statement like, yeah, I'm really enjoying it because X, Y, and Z. And almost everything, I haven't seen anyone say anything negative yet. I've heard that they've said it's massive, that you feel compelled to do everything
Mm-hmm.
that you see as side quests. Like in Final Fantasy 16, you saw a side quest and you were like, this is kind of laborious and a
Final
chore.
Fantasy 16, like I'm realizing now, part of what like I didn't really like about it as much as I'm liking this is it took itself way too seriously. And there's so many times like you just legitimately enjoy, like laugh and have so much fun, and the game doesn't take itself so seriously, so it feels like more lighthearted as you're going around. And I think like the only mild complaint, this is just a personal complaint, is I don't like stealth sections in games.
Right.
And there are a couple that popped up, but they're really short and they're not really the worst thing in the world. I just, every time I see them, I'm like, oh, here we go. And like I said, I'm personally not a big fan of the Fort Condor mini game, so that obviously wasn't for me. But what I like about what I come around to since when they first announced the remake as 3 parts, and I was in the camp of like, why can't they just do the whole thing all at once? I have come around after playing this one because I really enjoyed the first one. I have some complaints about the first one, specifically about being forced to go through like all these cutscene sequences and all these lines of dialogue, and if you have to go back to a chapter and shit. But what I like is I can tell they took criticism from the first game and applied that to the next game. And I could see how much this game has improved upon the first game. So I can see once the third game comes around, they're more than likely going to improve further. Like it seems like they're listening to the player base and trying to apply criticisms and fix what needs to be fixed, improve upon, amplify what's working. And I'm impressed with it.
And also improving upon the first game in innovative ways, despite it being essentially a second part to the first game. Like it's a new game, but it's also a second part. It's kind of weird. I think it's worth addressing as well. Like this is a semi-spoiler for the
sequel,
7,
right?
Sorry,
it's a sequel.
Well, that's the point
I
was about to make. Because there's
going to be a third one, so it's like right in this. It's the twin tower. It's the 2 towers.
Sequel still means sequel.
Allow me to explain. So you've got original Final Fantasy 7. Final Fantasy 7 remake.
Right. It's a sequel. I'm being a jerk.
Final Fantasy 7 remake itself is a sequel to Final Fantasy 7. The remake was a play on words. Final Fantasy 7 remake, Rebirth, and what I suspect is going to be called Reunion or something to that effect. Those 3 games are a
Revengeance,
is itself a sequel to the original Final Fantasy 7.
No, it is. It is. Like from what I understand, the story, like so. Very early on, I'm not gonna say like what happens, but the very start of it is like quite a surprise, and you immediately start kind of getting like I'm playing, I'm like I don't even know what the fuck's going on, like so. But I haven't gotten far enough story wise to see where just picks up from the ending of remake, so you're still trying to figure out what's going on with that side, like probably a multiverse kind of thing, and like that's my theory at least, or
that is absolutely what it is. That's basically confirmed in remake. Effectively,
spoilers.
Well, we're talking about
himself basically.
So you've got Final Fantasy OG. And then you had Advent Children. And then in Advent Children, Sephiroth comes back thanks to some like clones that were still around. And Genova's blood, even Jehovah, whoops. Genova's blood. and things like that. And then he pisses back off to the live stream. And what's happening in remake is he's using the live stream to come back in time and have a second go at it. So he's aware of what the fuck's going on. And he's just like, okay, I failed the first time, but I'm not going to fail this time. And then the current players, like Cloud, Tifa, and all that, are kind of like, why does this feel familiar? What's going on? It feels like we're reliving this.
They kind of did that in the first game, in the first part of the remake, primarily with Aerith, where she would kind of like acknowledge, like kind of hint at things every now and again.
Yeah, because Aerith has herself been in the live stream, so she's like, "Oh, I think it's Sephiroth. Sephiroth's doing something fucky, and I think we're having to do shit again." So it alludes heavily to it, but yeah. So like the Final Fantasy R trilogy, let's call it, is itself a sequel to the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. You know what it kind of, as you word it that way, it just reminds me a lot of like, there was I don't know if you guys how much you watch anime, but there was the Rebuild series for Evangelion, and they did kind of the same thing.
Right.
I've actually seen Evangelion.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like, it's not a niche one. It's just like,
that's one of those ones that even people who don't watch anime. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But they made the Rebuild movies, remember? And at first, like, they kind of said like they kind of did the same thing. It's actually kind of cheeky how like similar they are, where the Final Fantasy remake was like, oh, it's just a remake. Oh, it's just the rebuild of Evangelion, and they ended up being completely different, like actually like a continuation from the last game or the last series, because that's what ended up happening. Spoilers for like these old movies because they're not recent, but the Rebuild series was exactly the same, where like it ended up being like you could see these similarities from like the past year, like at the end of the movie. So it's kind of now that you mention that, I can see those similarities, and it's kind of neat, and that tickles me.
Yeah, that's why you have to fight the plot ghosts in as they ended up getting called in remake.
Yeah,
because they're trying to stop Sephiroth from fucking with time, basically.
Can I safely put on the thumbnail Final Fantasy review, no spoilers?
Well, it's not a review, but you could say, because there's no Rebirth spoilers.
People click on reviews, Brian. It's
fair,
a review.
Fair. But yeah, you could put that, because at this point, remake, I think we're free to spoil. We're not spoiling Rebirth.
I think the thing with when it comes to, if you've already played remake, first off, if you're playing Rebirth without playing remake, that's kind of
stupid.
Interesting. That's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because when, like I said, I mean, so I can't spoil. Like, it's not really a spoiler then. Like, so it picks up directly after the ending.
Yeah.
So you are controlling Zack in the beginning, like the first thing. So that's not a spoiler. That's the first thing that happens in the game. And there is like, it comes off as like an alternate timeline, because he like
that's massively hinted at the end of remake. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you see he's alive.
Well, it was, I sat there because they what started off is they did the same thing at the ending, where they showed they had the dog. There was the little dog, Snitch, Snatch, Scout, whatever the dog's name is. Stamp, whatever.
Dog.
Dog. Well, it was like a beagle. It was like graffitied in the sewers when you were playing, or in the tunnels in the remake.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a point to like, oh, you got to follow Stamp's nose or Scamp's nose, and then you go and at the end of remake, it's a different breed, which I saw some people point that out, and I was like, oh, it is a different breed. And when the in Rebirth, it starts up, they show the dog again. So it's like, oh, that's their way of showing that the dog is the dog is our symbol.
Right.
The dog is the arbiter.
But to summarize then, from what you played so far, about 12 hours, you've enjoyed pretty much everything.
Very much enjoying it.
And the things that you didn't are more specific to you rather than the game being bad, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
So whenever I make any if I complain about certain things, it's obvious, like things like
it's more of a preference thing.
If those are preference things, probably won't impede on other people's judgment or enjoyment. I'm just very difficult to please in that department. That's
fair. So to wrap that up, Final Fantasy VII Remake is now released. It's on PlayStation. I'm going to be waiting hopefully for PC. The exclusivity is until May, so potentially it'll be out on PC later this year, hopefully.
Is it going to be fucking epic?
Probably not. I think usually the Final Fantasy games
they released...
The last one was
it?
Yep.
No, it wasn't. It was on Steam.
Yeah, so the remake was exclusive on Epic for a certain amount of time. It's on Steam now, but they put so many blocks in the way of me
Oh,
wanting to
yeah,
play
'cause
it
they
that
have
I just couldn't give a shit anymore.
Right. That's
the
fine.
only thing the issue I had when it came out finally to Steam, and I made a tweet about it back when, was when they released it and it was $70 on
Mhm.
Steam, and I was like, no.
And it still wasn't completely fixed when they released it on Steam. I think it's
I
fine now. Is it
I
fine
have
now?
it on Steam.
No idea.
When I played it on Steam, it was fine. I only got it because back then I didn't have my PS5 yet, and the remake they released the DLC exclusive to the PS5, and I was super salty about that.
Yeah, I haven't
I couldn't
played
find
the
one.
DLC
That was
yet.
when the PS5 was this elusive imaginary thing that no one could find.
Yeah, the unicorn that no one could acquire.
Okay.
So I have it. I only got it specifically. Well, someone sent it to me, but I got it for only the DLC.
Right. That's fine.
And then I didn't play the DLC on the PS5, so I missed out on a summon.
Oh no!
I gotta go through it.
Can I now release all the muted people for the Final Fantasy talk?
Yes, release them.
You got
into
everything
the wild.
done?
Yes.
Well, some people really don't want anything at all, right? Even
Right.
seeing it on the front page on Twitch, like, and I get that.
Yeah.
If you're
that's
looking
fine.
forward to something, okay, it's over.
It's over. Should we talk about the thing that I thought you'd be really excited about, and then I saw you playing it, and then I was like, oh, I don't need to tell him about it, which is the Powerwash Simulator DLC.
Oh, you wouldn't have been the only person to let me know.
I'm sure I wasn't. Yeah, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, I wonder if he
no
knows.
idea. I had no idea that they were doing Warhammer DLC for Powerwash Simulator.
It took me by surprise, to be fair. Like, I know they've done. I think they've done a
They
Final
announced it
Fantasy
a long time
crossover
ago, and I
stuff.
was on the train from then on.
Right. Fair. How is it then?
It's great. It's great. The first thing you get to watch is a Land Raider. And what they've done specifically for the first level is they have painted the Land Raider as if it was one of the heavy metal team. They're the team that paint the box art miniatures specifically. So it's got like edge highlighting and it's banging. It's banging. I don't have a Land Raider. But I have a Rhino, which has some components that are similar. And looking at this Land Raider, I doubt they just got the files from Games Workshop and put them in, because that wouldn't work in a video game. But either their team has just studied those models in and out, or they've converted them from something, because they are so accurate to what I know those models and shapes to be.
I mean,
like,
it would be possible to scan one, like a one that's been printed out, and scan it. So and then
maybe
implement that.
Maybe, but it's very accurate. It doesn't feel like a production like model polygon. It definitely feels like a game one. So I don't know how they've done it, but it's very accurate. You start. Is this going to be spoilers? Because they kind of spoil them in the trailer anyway. So you get a Land Raider, then you get a Brutalis Dreadnought, which is the newer shaped Dreadnoughts, which was pretty cool. The best thing about that is doing his fingies, because it is ding central. Anyone who plays Powerwash Simulator, you know, when you get all those little ones together and you ding ding ding. Oh.
There's a lot of little stuff.
Yeah, that was good. It's very intricate. I will say it's more difficult than any of the other DLCs I've played or the base game.
Right.
There is a lot of nooks and crannies. And I'm wondering if that's on purpose, because people are like, ooh, it's like a little model and stuff.
Yeah.
So you get Brutalis Dreadnought, then you get a Lehman Russ, which do you remember Lehman Russ?
Sorry.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
So Lehman Russ is a Primarch, but it's also the name of a tank. You get to clean one of those. It's a Cadian one, which is great. And I'm looking for ages I was like, is that the Cadian? Is that the Cadian color scheme? And then you look on the side and it just says Cadia. So I was really smart there. You also get a Knight Paladin, which is a giant mech. It's not the biggest mech in Warhammer, but it is a giant mech. It is huge. That was a lot of fun to clean. And then the final level is a Thunderhawk, which took me and my girlfriend about 4 to 5 hours to clean.
Damn.
So you got your money's worth?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, definitely money's. I mean, the DLC is like £5-6 or something. It's not.
It's
pricey
$8 American. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so I was doing it on stream because I'm like, I just need something to sync into and chat, right? Because I haven't been streaming. I had a week off. And 3 hours I was cleaning this thing. Then my girlfriend came on and just helped me clean during the end of the stream. Then I finished the stream, had some food while she carried on cleaning, came back and we finished it off. It was big. That's big.
It sounds like they knew their audience with this one, because often you find with DLCs when there's some kind of crossover, it's kind of, in a lot of instances, very Easter egg, and it's just like, oh look, it's a Warhammer reference, that's nice. Whereas this, it's like, this is going to pull in the Warhammer crowd. They're going to want to be meticulous about it and spend lots of time on it and get in the nooks and crannies. It sounds like they really targeted that audience and like capitalized on the crossover rather than just being like, oh, they'll see Warhammer and just buy it.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Like you get a new skin for your Powerwash person, which is a tech priest. Your all your equipment is all Warhammer tech priest.
I was going to say, I noticed that.
You're in a giant a manufactorum. I don't know. You're in a giant room. Is it an Easter egg? If you look out the giant stained glass windows, yes, we have those in the 41st millennium. You can see Mars, which is a giant forge world, but you're actually on the Ring of Iron, which is basically strapped. You know, like the rings of Saturn or whatever. It's like that made of iron, but it's actually this. It goes into Mars as well with these big like shafts that go in. That was cool. I did notice a bug that happened to me 3 or 4 times. Is when I was on because they give you scaffolding to stand on to get the high bits. If I accidentally pushed I want to change my equipment button as I was stepping off one of these scaffolding, I clipped through the world and just sailed down until there was a Z point error, and my character's like, shh. It was so weird. But maybe it's themed because everyone was saying, oh, you're just in the warp now, which I found hilarious.
You've just been sent to the Netherrealm kind of thing.
Good DLC. My girlfriend isn't into Warhammer, but she enjoyed cleaning them. So, I mean, if you like Powerwash, you've probably bought it anyway because you just want more things to clean.
That makes
sense. I love Powerwash. I would probably end up picking it up, even though I'm not super into
it's just
Warhammer.
New stuff to clean, right?
Just give me stuff to clean. I don't want to clean my house. I want to clean it here.
Right.
But yeah, if you do like Warhammer, it is a lot of fun.
That's good.
Just giggling
good.
and
I can imagine so, because I somebody in my Discord is a big fan of Warhammer, and he was explaining to me like how he was so stoked about it. But it said the same. I heard the same complaint about there was just so much tiny shit, and it was how intricate it was. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going like, is that a good thing? That's a good thing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Why are you complaining?
It was a good thing for me, but it's like, oh my god, where is this 1%? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest frustration when it comes to Powerwash is you'll get so far and then you go like, wait a minute, it's something small because it's not flashing anywhere.
It's a good DLC.
On the topic of Warhammer, then, before we move on to the next game, you mentioned some codexes.
Oh, it's Warhammer World's anniversary today. I can't remember which anniversary it is. They're not. Warhammer World is the big building in Nottingham. But they've done some announcements, some really cool things. The 2 big things I think that I need to mention is brand new Orc Codex and brand new Adeptus Custodes Codex. So now y'all have proper Codex rules for 10th edition, and I hopefully they fixed Orcs. Orcs are really bad at shooting. Okay. That's kind of their thing. They just like shoot and stuff, but it's kind of boring in the current set of playing a game with Orcs. And the only bad thing you can do with Orcs is make them boring because they're a very swingy team. It's like, do I win? Do I lose? Don't know. Run at them, kill them. Right. So hopefully they fix that in the Codex. It literally came out today, or it was literally announced today. So I don't know what they've done to the rules, but I will assume that they have put a bit more fun back into the Orcs because they got their own Codex now. Right.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Do you want to talk about the next 2 games, or do you want to take a rest and I'll lasty pocket up for a bit? Or...
I do want to bring up Bandle Tale. which is the League of Legends. It's kind of. I thought it was going to be a farming game. I thought it was going to be a bit closer to what's that farming game?
Stardew Valley.
Yes, I thought it was going to be a bit closer to that. It's more of an RPG with farming and crafting elements, rather than I'm going to grow this thing. It's all based around a knitter with yarn and stuff. Okay. And you carry around a magic backpack, and you can roll out different carpets and do different things on the carpets. There's a lot of references to characters you know from, well, specifically the smaller characters from League of Legends, and it's just really cute. And I was playing it on stream. I don't think it's a very good stream game because it's not like a farming thing. But then I played it offline, and I was just it's good. It's really well made. The visuals are beautiful. It's great, and it's written well enough, I guess. I don't know how well you want to write a little cutesy I'm farming with my backpack game, but yeah, I think it's pretty good. This is probably the last gaming coming from Riot Forge, so
true.
I would say check it out. It out. But it's definitely more focused on the RPG. It's like Crypt Keeper, but there's less farming than Crypt Keeper as well. It's definitely more story focused.
Is it Steam only or PC only?
No, it's on Switch. I know it's on Switch. It might just be Switch and PC though.
Okay. I think I saw it on the Switch actually, because I've been playing my Switch a lot more lately when I run.
Do we know how much it is?
It's I mean, it's not AAA. I can tell you.
I can look it up right now.
I forgot how to spell Bandle tail.
They're both racing for it.
25?
$25.
25 okay. American.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, 20 quid. 19.99.
Nice.
Yeah, so, or 24.99 American.
Do you know
it is adorable. There is plenty to do. I do recommend it. I do recommend it, but it's maybe not a stream game.
Right, that's fair. Do you know how long like the campaign is, if there is one at all?
I've been playing it for like 8 hours and I'm still going, so and I'm nowhere near the end.
Cool. So it looks like you probably get a fair amount of time out of it as well.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. Do you want to jump into Pacific Drive, or should I give you a rest?
No, that's fine. We can move on. I talked about Powerwash more than I thought I was going to talk about Powerwash, to be honest.
You could tell me about Pacific Drive, Peachy. I want to know about it.
It's good. There are a few bugs, but they keep uploading patches, so it's in safe hands.
Do you like survival games, Paul?
That one's been... Funny enough, no.
You won't like
I do...
Pacific Drive.
No, wait. Hold on. I do, and I don't. Like, I do... Like, I like survival games, but I don't like base building. So... But when I looked at Pacific Drive,
do you like the collection? Do you like the collection of stuff and like foraging for materials, and then if you get murdered, you drop all your materials?
I have a lot of fun doing. I have a lot of fun doing. Okay. Whenever I play things like, I think I was planning on doing a community, like a whole community gaming of like Sons of the Forest, because it just exited early access. And with that, I usually I have a whole group that I'll play with when I played the first Forest. And I had like 2 people playing or who are like stay back and do base building because that was their thing. And I try to get like a collection of friends who like to do different things, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable for me.
It's a very intriguing story running alongside.
Yeah,
it as well.
It looked more story focused.
I have no idea what's happening though, so but I only played it for about 4 hours.
But I saw it didn't look so heavy on like the base building aspect.
No, it's not like Ark or Power or something like that. It's not that kind of
I just throw shit wherever. It's like I just give me the resources I need. I want to go exploring. I'm the wanderer.
So I'll
go spelunking.
The thing about Pacific Drive is, rather than base building, it's all about your car. Your car is your base, effectively.
That's why I was interested in it, and it looks kind of sci-fi-ish, and I thought it looked kind of
it's got some cool sci-fi. I think the car's alive, but I'm not sure.
Is it?
Don't quote me on that, but I think it's alive.
But does it breathe?
It breaks down a lot. Like that's the thing about the game. It is kind of brutal. Like you get tires going flat. You could hit one of the anomalies in the world, and it can just fuck up your car. You can have things like combo together. Like a monster might pull you into this thing.
I live in LA.
No,
I know what it's like to drive and run into anomalies.
oh yeah, well, like I've heard of people who will get like pulled by these alien robot things, and then the car will stall in a poison cloud, and then you lose everything. So all the things you've been collecting, and you've gone on like this journey for miles, like a roguelike in a way. It's like someone turned Stalker into a roguelike, and you have to protect this car and do weird things to protect this car and upgrade your car to get out of this weird ass zone. So if you enjoy survival as a whole, like outside of the building aspect, but the actual collecting and taking risks to get resources and stuff like that, and RPing quite a lot, like you have to park the car, put on the handbrake, open the car door, get out of the car, get back in the car, close the door, stuff like that. If you like all that meticulous stuff,
pissed me off for ages.
I bet it did.
So I'm like, for fuck's sake, it's down there now.
Yeah, if you're into whole, like, the meticulousness of survival games and collecting the resources and the challenge of acquiring those resources, then you will like Pacific Drive, because it really focuses on that. It's a
built world. It's not like, survival crafting.
No,
it's
it
big
looks
open
really
land,
neat.
kill a tree.
It looks really neat. It's been on my radar for a bit. Like right now, I'm kind of on I'm on a no buy because of what I was telling you.
By November.
Yeah, so I'll wait. But it was one of the games I had on my radar where I was like, dude, I wish I could. Same with Helldivers too.
I played it on release. It was a bit buggy, but I've seen maybe 3 patches so far.
For Helldivers or Pacific
for
Drive?
Pacific Drive.
Oh, okay. I mean, but it's an indie game, man. Like what is it, like $30?
It was just silly bugs. It's not like,
Yeah.
I think there was a progression bug which they fixed. I don't
side eye stuff like that, because it's when it's an indie game. Like if it's a little buggy in the beginning, as long as it gets fixed.
It depends, doesn't it? A game can be buggy as shit, but so much fun that you don't mind. Skyrim.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
True.
There are some games that I kind of welcome bugs sometimes if they're goofy, not if they're game breaking.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Should we talk Last Epoch then?
Fucking go!
I'm so excited. I'm
ready,
so
gamers.
So,
air horn.
Last Epoch, for those not familiar, it is a indie game that started with a Reddit post. So quite literally, Judd, the director of 11th Hour Games, posted on Reddit. He was like, I want to make an action RPG. Who wants to help me out? And I think the team turned into like maybe 5 people. It was a handful of people who were just doing it outside of their real life jobs, just throwing this game together. It picked up steam, so they ended up doing a Kickstarter. And then that Kickstarter did really, really well. Then it went into early access on Steam. And now 4 or 5 years later, it's just released at 1.0. And it has done phenomenally. So much so, they've had virtually no actual like marketing. It's all been pretty much word of mouth. That the servers have been shitting their pants for since release, unfortunately. But it has an offline mode, which is huge because
in 2024,
I know, right?
Offline?
It has an offline mode. It's fully offline as well. So technically, it's got like 2 offline modes. There's the regular one where if you just load up the game by default, you've got the server content, but it still authenticates your account, and then you can play offline. But then you've got a full offline where it disables the chat, any multiplayer features, and everything like that, and you can just play an offline character. So that has been a big win, I think, for a lot of people because of the server issues. But the server issues were largely due to their own success, because they hit nearly 300,000 concurrent players for an indie action RPG. That's insane.
These smaller games based on servers are like Powerworld did it. Helldivers has had server issues. Last Epoch, like you can't plan. The thing is, you can't plan for that, because if you go, I'm going to spend £1 million on servers, you are out of pocket.
And another thing as well is I find that, especially with the more indie devs, they are always really humble about their release and really underestimate. Like there was actually an interview with one of the devs called Mike, a fantastic person to watch in interviews, and he can be really, really insightful. And one of the questions he asked was like, how many, bit of a cheeky question, but how many do you think you're going to hit, like concurrent players? And he was like, it'd be nice to hit 100,000. And it's like, you sweet summer child, Mike, because every like influencer that's been following or creating content on Last Epoch was just like, yeah, it's going to be a lot more than that. It's going to far exceed it. And yeah, they hit just under 300,000. The game itself, if you were to
For
have
reference, 100,000 concurrent is considered a success in AAA titles.
yes,
Like a good success. Like, and we know what AAAs are like. Well, that's not enough.
I think it's in the top 30, if not the top 30, at least the top 50 of concurrent players on Steam ever. So that's something to be mindful of. And this is something that started with a Reddit post. Just some guy who was like, I like making or playing action RPGs. I want to make one. Who wants to give me a hand? And then it's turned into this. In terms of reference of the other two games that are big at the moment, of course, you've got Diablo 4 and you've got Path of Exile. Diablo 4, excruciatingly casual, very, very simple, not a lot of depth.
Excruciatingly casual.
Yeah, no, seriously, I genuinely think it's a design problem they've got because they've made because it's a live service. And a live service is about retaining players and keeping them in the game as long as possible, providing them with things to do. And in an action RPG, to do that, you need depth because people will create new builds. They'll experiment. They'll play around, try new things. In Diablo 4, there's none of that. It's all really obvious what to do. You're playing a fireballs build. Oh, well, you want the fireball-based item. And it's because there's only one of that item for a start. So there's no actual choices. It's the builds are already defined and built for you by the developers. Whereas in contrast, Path of Exile, it's a sandbox. They just give you fuckloads of tools, literally hundreds and hundreds of skills, hundreds of ways to manipulate those skills. An example would be Leap Slam in Path of Exile. You can manipulate it in over 80 ways. You can convert the damage it does, how it does damage, things that happen after it does damage. You can get it so it enables other skills when it does damage, things like that. In Diablo 4, you've got Leap, which is effectively the same skill in terms of like archetype. You can change it in 2 ways and only one of the 2. You have to pick one. And it's like huge like differential in player autonomy there. Last Epoch is smack bang in the middle. There's lots of depth. There's lots of... You can take 10 players, give them the same class, even the same skill, and you will get 10 different builds with Last Epoch. But it's not so much so like in PoE where it overwhelms you. You're not looking at hundreds of nodes on the passive tree and then going, shit the bed kind of thing. You pick a skill, you open that skill, and then that skill has 30 nodes. And they're all very clear, and it's very well articulated to the player what they do and what benefits you'll get from using them. And it's likewise with the itemization. In Diablo 4, it's remarkably simple. It's all basically damage modifiers, critical strike, critical multiplier, enhanced damage in one way or another, but they're all effectively doing the same thing, which is make the damage number go up. In PoE, you have those, but you also have things that convert the damage type, convert the interaction, does the projectile you fire bounce off multiple things. Last Epoch has done what PoE is doing, but again on a far smaller, more manageable, tangible scale. The graphics are something that I see criticized a lot. I think the art style plays well into the fidelity of the graphics. Like if you're looking for the most graphical fidelity, then you're going to go with Diablo 4 and then probably Path of Exile 2 when that comes out in closed beta in June. I think Last Epoch is a very pretty game. I think the art style is fantastic, and it just really lends itself to the fact that they've probably got a weaker engine with less graphical fidelity. I would say it's not fully...
A smaller team as well.
Sorry?
A smaller team. Graphical fidelity takes a lot of people.
Yes, that's... See, I intend on doing a Diablo 4 review, and it's probably going to be in an essay-like form, so for like over 2 hours, because there's so much I want to talk about it. And one of the things I want to talk about it is I think they've actually got a smaller team than a lot of people suspect, because they go, oh, it's Blizzard, so they must have a massive team. I don't think they do, because I just watched the patch notes recently, yesterday, and they always look fucking knackered. They always look like they're about to pass out on this stream, where they're like, yeah, so we added new features, and then it just looks like they're going to die. Like, massive bags under their eyes. They always look dead. I know Last Epoch's like studio, so this could include like managerial and admin staff and things like that, but I know they're like 90 people. But I also know GGG with Path of Exile 2 only technically has a handful of people working on Path of Exile 1. So it could be that that's irrelevant. But then again, the way the games are built plays a lot into it as well. Like Path of Exile has been built in a way where it can be iterated on and expanded on. Whereas I think Diablo 4 they make a system and just assume that system's complete, and then when people come back with feedback and go, oh, you need to expand on it, they're like, oh fuck, we can't, because we kind of sealed it up into this finite package. Like the skill system, people are complaining that the skill system, and have been complaining since it was first seen in 2019, is too shallow, but they can't expand on it without remaking it. So you've got problems like that. Last Epoch again leans more towards the philosophy that Path of Exile has, where they can iterate on things, they can expand on their dungeon system, they can expand on their endgame monolith system, which is kind of like a cross between maps and delve if you play Path of Exile. Basically, if you've been someone who's like, Diablo 4's too easy, too boring, too simple, PoE's too overwhelming, check out Last Epoch. It's $35. The campaign is, it has a lot of reading. If you don't read and you're the sort of person who just blasts through the dialogue by clicking the next button, you might be a wee bit confused about the story. It's got some time travel stuff in it.
We're okay with that. That's why we skip through.
Yeah, that's fair play. The end game, obviously,
I'll worry about that later.
That's
for future me to worry about.
I'll watch a YouTube video if I want to know what the story is.
Yeah, 100%. And to be fair, like, even as someone who knows some of the story, it's not amazing by any means. It's not going to be like, oh my god, this is the best story I've ever encountered ever. You're going to be like, yeah, it's serviceable. It's cool. You're more focused on like where you are. You're looking around going, oh wow, this place is pretty. Oh, I'm in this ancient tomb that's got purple shit trying to mutilate me from the sides. Oh, I'm in this beautiful garden in the back of a palace and things like that. It's all very, very pretty in it because of the art style. The end game is, it allows you again to be creative. You can find an item. You can do, I recently discovered a item called Vial of Volatile Ice, and I'm currently making a build and a build guide about it, where it converts how one of the skills in the game actually plays. So there's a skill called Acid Flask, which is you throw a flask of acid. That's the skill. This item changes it to ice, so it no longer does poison damage, it does cold damage. It no longer does a poison damage over time effect. It just changes it to chilling them. There's another type of dot that you can do and things like that. But that subsequently means that you can skill different things to synergize with it, because you're no longer thinking about the poison aspect of it, you're thinking about the cold aspect of it. So I'm going with like a critical build rather than a dot build and leaning into that. And it just allows you to have difficult choices, but difficult choices in a good way. Again, in Diablo 4, you go, well, I'm playing a dot build, so I'm going to pick the things that have the dot tag, because there are specific things that literally are designed for that skill. In PoE and Last Epoch, you go, okay, I have this skill. I have this item and it enhances it in this way. I have another item that enhances it in a completely different way. So there's the first difficult choice. And you go, okay, maybe I should go with that, because that will then synergize with this other thing. But wait, the previous, that also, ooh. And you're then left going, what would be better? Fuck it, I'll try both. That gets you playing the game more, gets you experimenting more. It gets you to be creative. It inspires you. It incentivizes creativity. Diablo 4 doesn't do that. Diablo 4 is a good console game. You go in, you've got a couple of hours after work, your dinner's about to be ready, so you're just going to blast demons, you just want to kill shit. That's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't make good for a live service, because you do that for a week usually, and then you go, I've done all the content, farewell, I remember you, Hello Kitty calls, and then that's it. Whereas PoE and Last Epoch, you're there going, ooh, I've made a build, it works, I've completed it, I've done all the things, I'm going to make another one now. And you make a new character, or maybe even the same class, but a completely different build altogether. I'm about to do 3 build guides for one class, and there's many more that I can do, but I'm going to obviously mix onto other things. But yeah, in a nutshell, really, really good action RPG game made by action RPG players who know what action RPG players want. And they take a lot of feedback from the community. I think part of the success is they had a closed test realm. So they had like thousands of people playing behind the scenes under NDA, but people who wanted to contribute and give good feedback and be like, okay, this is why we think this is bad. This is why we think this is good. This is how we can enhance it. And outside of the server issues, I don't think you will see many complaints. You may see a few people who will say, there's not a lot of endgame content. But I think people will only say that because Path of Exile exists. And Path of Exile's had 10 years to add to their content. They've added new content every year, every quarter for every year for the last 10 years. And sure, you would expect people to take that into consideration. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if you've got a game that already exists that has a multitude of content, I can forgive you for preferring that game at the end of the day, because that's an option that is available to you. I'm not going to say, no, you can't compare the two because it has been developed for 10 years. But at the end of the day, that is something to consider when you look at Last Epoch. Last Epoch is a live service that is going to develop over time. They're going to add a new boss at least in the next patch in 3 months, the next cycle as they call it, which is equivalent to leagues in PoE or seasons in Diablo 4. They're expanding on the monolith content, which is like the mapping / dungeon system that you would compare to a Path of Exile Diablo 4.
Is it ready to play now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll get hundreds of hours out of it now. Even on one character, you'll easily get hundreds of hours on it. It's just, I think the action RPG community has been spoiled by Path of Exile in a way.
Right.
Especially when they started playing Diablo 4 and they were like, oh wow, because people used to complain that GGG didn't add X, Y, and Z content in every 3 months to Path of Exile. Then Diablo 4 came out and they were like, holy shit, GGG, we love you. kind of thing. You do so much content. And I think Last Epoch, because they've been in early access and effectively been adding regular content anyway, they're already into that mindset. They're already practiced at it. Whereas I think the Diablo 4 devs, they only know their own action RPGs. And that's largely Diablo 3, which was a casual, not live service game. And they lean too hard on that. So then when people come expecting a good live service action RPG, they're like, this doesn't feel like one. Because there's loads of design philosophies that are literally counter to retaining players. Like the simplicity. Like if a game's so simple and you complete it in a week, why would you play it for multiple weeks every 3 months? Because it's the same thing over and over again. Whereas in the other two games, Last Epoch and PoE, you've always got something new to discover, to explore. And it's just so well done. The servers have basically been fixed now as well. So also, just for transparency, I was sponsored to play it. I've been playing it for hundreds of hours prior to being sponsored, and I will continue to do so. I'm making YouTube videos, which you should subscribe to, or you're a little bitch. But yeah, so that's
it, basically. I love this. Would you like to play this? Yes, I would.
Yes. I was just like, cool, yeah, sure. Just, I'll take your money.
The easiest sponsorship to accept.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, highly recommend.
That's awesome. That's Mazel Tov.
I've got a story about sponsorships. I'll tell you in the break, which only the live viewers will hear.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Speaking of break, should we jump into our break now?
Yeah.
Cool. We are going to stop
thumbs up for me.
For about 5 to 10 minutes. Go get yourselves a drink, stretch your legs, look out a window, gaze upon the night sky, etc. And we will be back for part 2. And mics, of course, will be hot.
Don't go
Mics are hot, baby. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go get rid of my...
Hey everyone, just wanted to interrupt this podcast briefly to say a big thank you, huge thank you to those of you who watch us live on Twitch, those of you who watch on YouTube and are subscribed and like the videos, those of you who write reviews on Spotify and things like that. Actually, huge. Love it when people give us like 5-star reviews and things like that. So thank you again to all of you. Also, just wanted to let you know, we do, of course, have a Patreon, patreon.com/fully rendered. On the Patreon, you get to ask us Q&A questions that we will feature in the podcast. You get to help us decide on topics. You get access to specials. Currently, there's a special with Peachy and Pulp to talk about Warhammer lore, for example, things like that. So if that sounds cool to you, do please check it out. Patreon.com/fully rendered. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.
Homosexual agenda. It says be gay.
True.
Be gay, do crime.
That's it.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of the Fully Rendered podcast, episode 26. Jumping in to the second half of the episode, I've got some news. It's about Embracer.
Oh my god.
But it's not bad. It's actually good news about Embracer. So 2 studios have managed to break away from Embracer. Largely the $500 million deal by Saber Interactive. They've managed to buy themselves out, and they're now going independent. So rather than just being disbanded and abandoned, I suppose, they're actually going to continue doing their own thing without having some like overlord publisher looming over them who's going to eventually go bankrupt anyway. So there's that. There was also Toys for Bob. So they made the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro remakes. They've gone indie as well now, so hopefully we'll be able to see some really cool things from them, because obviously they kind of revitalized those games. Crash Bandicoot, I believe, did particularly well. was it the Insane trilogy that they made or remade, something to that effect. So yeah, so hopefully they're going to do quite well.
So the Saber stuff, is it all the subsidiaries?
I would assume so, based on the amount of money they've paid. So I believe they're taking the IP with them for all the games.
Because you know the developers of the Space Marine 2 game are Saber, a subsidiary of.
Yes, so I would assume that that is all included as well. So all the IPs that Saber would have owned or had rights to develop, I believe they are part of the deal.
They have a lot of subsidiaries. You've played games from like a bunch of Saber who might not have, like hang on. Zen Studios, the pinball games, the hugely successful pinball games. It was a Saber as well.
I believe they did the World War Z game as well.
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah. Yeah, so
they've done a lot, but they've got a lot of subsidiaries, and I'm wondering, like, for a company who needs money, such as Embracer, they're gonna let Space Marine 2 go.
I mean,
someone has paid a lot of money for that.
Yeah, I think
500 million.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw the number.
Yeah, it is a big number. So, like I said, I think they did get the IPs with them.
They must have done.
I would be very surprised.
500
Yeah,
million.
I'd be very surprised.
Pulp.
We've lost Pulp. Pulp. What doing?
500 million. Yeah. Okay, they've definitely got the subsidiaries.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. Either way, it's going to be good to see them.
Embracer's going to be a scaffolding of nothing, dude.
Quite possibly. I mean, they did a huge gamble on something that was definitely not a sure thing, and would have arguably also pissed people off, because there is quite an anti-Saudi Arabia sentiment, I would say, due to, like, you know,
human rights issues.
Yeah. So
we'll say that and leave it there, shall we?
yeah. So I think folks are basically going to be stoked for Saber and looking forward to what they can do, because they've made good games. They've absolutely made good games. So
they've been tied to a lot of stuff. Like, you have, like, anyone listening to this, oh, I never played a Saber game. You actually have.
You
like,
very likely have.
They've been in the industry a long ass time.
Yeah, they've been around a fair while.
And they've been solid. Like, they've been a solid studio.
Like,
for a long time.
They were called something else before they were Saber. I can't remember what it was, but they've been making games for probably like 30 to 40 years now. They've been around the block.
Yeah.
Then after
they're
that,
probably very, very glad to be clear of the embrace, as my chat is calling it. They've escaped the embrace.
Yes, very much have escaped the embrace. We had another subject. I'm going to wait until Pulp hopefully comes back. If you can do me a favor, Peachy, and just let me know when she comes back, because she'll be muted when she first comes in.
Okie dokie.
But there's been a reveal trailer for Terminator Survivors. It is a cinematic trailer, so we haven't seen any gameplay. Me and Peachy were actually talking about this prior to the stream. It sounds like it's going to be pretty sick, though. So it's supposed to be based on post-Judgment Day. So Judgment Day has happened, and then it's the survivors of Judgment Day. So that, in a survival aspect, where you're basically having to not get murdered by all the Terminators and things like that. That sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. It is Nacon. It is Nacon. Okay,
so this is a Nacon Studio Milan. This is a new studio. But Nacon are the ones that did the Terminator game I was talking about, Robocop Rogue City. Oh, they did Session. That's a really good skate game. Oh, yeah, Blood Bowl 3. That's not good.
No, that didn't go down well, did it?
No.
But I'm excited for it, or at least excited to see more about it, hopefully when we do see gameplay eventually. Because, like I was saying to you, whilst I am not a massive Terminator fan, I'm not going to be like, oh, Terminator game, I've got to play it. I do enjoy survival games, and the idea of a survival game in that universe in that way does sound really cool to me. It would also be really cool to play a Terminator one day, to actually be the Terminator. Or a Terminator, or a robot of some sort. Yeah.
So what you want is Necrons. Now, in the 41st millennium, you knew before
for the Emperor.
The Necrons aren't for the Emperor.
These fucking heretics, or something. I just say memes at random and hope that it fits.
My girlfriend was doing our fridge. She was like, "Blood for the blood god," and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's Warhammer." She's like, Oh, was it? I've
Like-
been saying that for a while.
Sure, yeah, yeah, cool. But so that's something to look forward to. Then you have had. I thought this was actually really interesting. Did you play Nier Automata or the other Nier game?
No, but I saw the memes with the crushed hand in the gears.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Because she's a robot, right?
She's kind of like an android, yeah, effectively.
Robot thing, and on Heavy Machinery, it has that warning sign with the gears and a hand crushed in it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole meme. There's nothing deep there.
Fair, that's fair. Well, they've been doing like a tour for, like how Final Fantasy does like an orchestral tour where you can just go and check out the music live and things like that. You've got Metal Gear Solid have done it. Nier are currently doing it. And Yoko Taro, he's basically been at these shows and then would just come on and be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was, what does that, Nier, but with the 3 replacing one of the, I wonder why that's there. So it looks like we're getting a third Nier game.
That's an interesting way to announce a game, but we've had it announced in boardrooms before from tax docket. Well, so
Yoko Taro is a very bizarre man. He knows what he likes. Like people have asked him, like, so why does 2B look the way that 2B looks? Like, why is she in high heels if she's like this military professional? And he's like, high heels are hot. That's why. And that's it. He's just very cut and dry about it. So they've been heavily hinting at another Nier game. If you've played a Nier game
that's like multiple genres in one game.
Yes, so you could like go through the game being in third person action RPG kind of thing, like God of War style, and then suddenly you're in a flying machine and it's more like a bullet hell and stuff like that. The genres do vary. It technically also has multiple campaigns that follow each other. So you do one campaign, you're like, oh, that's the end of the game. And it goes, oh, you've now unlocked campaign B, which will then be running parallel, but from another character's perspective. And then there's another, I think it goes up to 5 or 6. It's a very big game, very, very time consuming, but it's a very, very well done game. The music in it's good. The art style is good. The combat's good. Itemization is good. She do be back. Let me just unmute me, Pulp. There you go. Welcome back, Pulp. Internet issues, I assume.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I thought it was Twitch at first, but no, apparently it just sucked my whole apartment.
Not to worry. Welcome back. We were just talking about the potential of a third Nier game that's been hinted at by Yoko Taro.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so hopefully that's something to look forward to in the future. Because
to my understanding, I do have something to add about that.
Yeah.
There is a third game. It's the mobile game. Like people they might not like it, but it is. And because that's what I think even the creators have mentioned that too. So I don't know, and they just announced the service ending. I think the service was an end of service was announced at the end of January.
Right.
So
they're not going to announce a third game at a
I think
it would be a fourth game. It probably would be a fourth game technically, but from what I understand, is after they said, what did he mention? What did they say during the? It was during a concert.
Yeah, so he's been at multiple concerts on this tour, and the hint is specifically Nier 3.
He also called out the president of Square, like somebody who higher up at Square Enix, because he famously does not like Square Enix. Yeah.
I don't give a fuck, apparently.
No, he doesn't.
Dude, I love Yoko Taro. He is just a full-on troll. There was like an advertisement he did years ago for Nier Automata where he's rolling around on the floor holding the t-shirt, and out of nowhere he just goes, fuck Square Enix.
Yeah, he's a very peculiar fellow.
He's a very odd man. But what I understand is that they said they used a word and they put a 3 in it.
Yeah.
During the but he also he tweeted afterwards reincarnation, which is the name of the mobile game.
Right.
With the 3. So that's why I'm like that. I'm not sure if it's actually hinted.
It's a mobile port.
Potentially.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been playing the mobile game. It actually is interesting, but it's a gacha game. And let's be real, gacha games fucking suck.
Yeah.
But
but wildly successful and earn so much money.
Yeah. It end of service.
I have to touch. No, it is the whales that are wrong.
Speaking of that, by the way, it was
so
something.
I was.
Sorry,
oh yeah.
I've got to hunt it down.
All I was going to say, my opinion on that was just I'm a little skeptical that it's actually an announcement for a new game, because he's gone on the record and said that he was done with it Nier at some point, and I don't know. Like he is like a very peculiar man, so he could be messing around with just screwing around with everyone.
I hope it's a mainline game because Nier is awesome, and I want more Nier. So hopefully it is.
It's a shame. Like I feel very strongly about like when games end up like there's like sequels and they're like a lot of story information end up just being on mobile, because like I don't really like mobile as a platform in general, and especially if it's a gacha game. Like Jesus Christ, because we've already touched on this with Ever Crisis.
Yeah,
like there's all this story information. Just go online, just go check it out.
Just watch the YouTube videos. Yeah,
because like it's such a slog to get that one in particular. I can't stand. I tried it and I ended up deleting it from my phone. But I've been playing Nier Reincarnation since launch because I do really thoroughly enjoy the story of Nier. And there have been some pretty good story development, but my biggest frustration with it is it's locked behind a mobile game.
Yeah.
So people who are a big fan of Nier Automata and played Replicant and even the Dragon Guard series, they might not be privy to what information has been revealed within the mobile game.
Yeah.
And it's really quite a shame because I know they're finished. The end of service is, I believe, April 28th. And they're doing one last chapter for the story to conclude everything. And where they left off on the story does wrap up or does kind of come full circle with the other games. And it's actually pretty cool. And I know they do have, you can go on the wiki and look it up. And there are like the short stories and stuff that they've released supporting that. But it is quite a shame that it's locked behind, it's behind a mobile game, a gacha game nonetheless. So I'm going to take what he said with a grain of salt about it being a new game, because
maybe he's bringing that story to a real game.
I would like to see that, because I do think the story in the mobile game is really cool, but it's still a mobile game and I don't like it.
Yeah,
which is probably something he didn't want to do, and now he's probably in a position where he can be like, you know what? I'm going to make that game the thing I actually wanted.
From what I understand, the way even like Automata was made was kind of an anomaly in and of itself, because his games before
a remake of the original. It was the second.
No, that's Replicant. So
okay.
Nier is
the story. It's very confusing.
No, it's very confusing. So there's the Drakengard series, and then there's the Nier series, and Nier is still connected to Drakengard. From what I understand, and I might have gotten some of the details about this wrong, so please forgive me. He made Drakengard 1 and 3. 2 was another person, but so he didn't have much involvement. There was the first Nier that came out on Xbox 360 and PS3. They did not do that well commercially. And I have played Drakengard 3 and Nier on the Xbox, and they play pretty. They're very forgettable games, like gameplay wise, and I could see why they didn't do well. And he wanted to do Automata, but Square Enix wouldn't let him do that, so they had a higher up who put his own name on the line to give him that other opportunity, and that's when Platinum stepped in and developed the game for him. And it ended up being a commercial success. Everyone loves that game. Everyone loves the butts. Everyone loves the Android butts.
Recently sold 8 million copies, I believe.
Did it?
Yeah, in the last month or so.
That's a lot of copies.
Yeah.
Especially for a niche game.
So the whole story behind that in and of itself is very fascinating. That the game almost wasn't even made. And they basically, Square Enix gave him one last chance when a higher up was willing to speak up for him, but told him it had to be good because it was his last chance. And then Platinum stepped in and made the game be. But I'm not going to put too much faith in that him teasing a new game, because when I saw the tweet where he typed out reincarnation and put a 3 in there, that I took that as he's acknowledging that the mobile game is the third game.
Right.
Oh, I would do that if it's about to come to end of service.
I don't know.
Well,
The
like
guy's a
I
troll.
said, it could be a port or something like that. Or
It could be a port.
It could be that he was trolling. He does troll. Like sometimes he might
he
be taking the
trolls a
piss and be
lot.
like, oh, it's the mobile game, or is it? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
You never know with him.
and like I said, apparently during that same concert, there was like I don't know what his position was at Square Enix, but it was someone who was higher up, not maybe even the president of Square Enix, and he called him out on it, or like acknowledged him there. And even in the DLC of Automata, the final boss of the DLC, it's a Coliseum, are the higher ups of Square Enix. You kick their ass. So the guy's a full-on troll.
Yeah,
it's great. I thought Peachy would like that.
Speaking of,
I'm actually interested in the game because I get to beat up.
It's a genuinely good game, dude.
I'll find a picture for you, Peachy. You know, it's really fun.
But speaking of end of service, this was I actually forgot to include this in a previous episode. It was a tweet that I saw from a live service game. I'll just bring it up on screen. And it's about a game that was in Japan, I believe, and they were releasing a global version. So the tweet says, "We are excited to break the news to you that the global version of Love Live School Idol Festival 2 Miracle Live," yes, that is the game name, "is launching soon in February 2024. However, we also want to inform you that the global version will close its doors on May 31st, 2024 and cease in-app purchases accordingly." So in the same tweet that they announced going live with their live service, they announced they'll be closing it just a few months later. In the exact same tweet. That is how volatile live services are and how much people underestimate the work that is involved. But when I saw that tweet, I laughed my head off. I was like, how can you really announce your game launching and closing in the same tweet?
Yeah.
I mean, all live services should do that.
You just want to see the end of them. Just end live service.
Yeah.
I think they can be done well. Like Path of Exile is a good one, for example. Last Epoch will be a good one.
Last Epoch's a good one because you can play it offline. You get to play the game you paid for.
True.
Live services are a scam.
When you go into a live service game,
kill their games.
I can't agree with that because I think there are, like I said, ones that are done well, and it's not just because of an offline mode or something to that effect. It's because
that's like saying I ate a shit that didn't taste too bad.
No,
still eating shit.
No, because you're coming from an angle where you're assuming it is bad, whereas
because
but they're alive.
Current year.
But
do you want to go and play Suicide Squad, Brian?
I don't.
Oh my god, that game's the game of the year, dude.
Brian!
Because I knew that was going to be a bad live service game, but there are good ones that exist that do it well. Where they knew what they were getting into. They knew and can keep up with the cadence of content. Path of Exile releases a phenomenal amount of content every 3 months for free. And you can experience that content and almost always have an amazing time each time. I've got literally thousands of hours in that game now. And I always look forward to the updates and things like that. But then there are games such as Suicide Squad, which we'll probably talk about in a bit, where they are struggling to even keep a higher concurrent player count to their old Arkham games that are currently outperforming it. Warner Bros. In fact, fuck it, we'll talk about it now. Warner Bros. Have gone on record and said it's not meeting expectations. They've apparently got a roadmap for 4 seasons, and people are like, "You're not going to make it past the first, you silly bitches," kind of thing. So, like, that's an example where it's a publisher has approached one of their studios who specialize in a specific type of game. So, in this case, Rocksteady, they did single-player narrative-driven games that were very, very successful, and then they've gone, "Cool, now use that IP to make a live service," and then they go, "I don't fucking know." Same happened with Anthem and BioWare. BioWare, narrative-driven, very RP-heavy games, and then suddenly they were asked to make a live service game, and they were like, "Oh, fuck, we don't know how to do that." There's loads of examples of that. I would even argue that Diablo 4 falls into such a category. But there are absolutely companies that do it well. Fucking Fortnite is literally probably one of the biggest, most successful games in the world. It is a marketing machine. It has a huge amount of content, constantly blasting it out. But they, Epic, have probably like 600 people working on Fortnite because they know the work that's required. And often with live services, the issue is that they go into it thinking, oh, we can use the same amount of people as we did developing a game over 5 years to develop a game continuously every 3 months, so, and on and on and on. And then they end up burnt out. They can't keep up. They fuck up. They come out with shallow systems and so forth. So I think it's largely done, or what decides whether or not it's done well is largely based on the experience and the expectations of the developers when they're going into it. And more often than not, they don't know what they're doing going into it, and that's why they suck at it, basically.
There are more bad live service games than there are good service games. Ergo, live service games are bad.
You could argue that for games as a whole, though. You could say there are more bad games than there are good ones, because people are churning out games all the time. Whether or not you give them the time of day, though, is up to you.
I'll say games are bad. Games suck, dude.
Yeah.
I haven't touched City Skylines 2.
So the summary, for anyone listening, is
all
games are bad.
All games are bad.
All games are bad. Every single one. Where's the agenda gone?
Where's the agenda? I've scribbled over it, just writing the words over and over again. Fuck live service games.
Fuck live service games. Pulp, I waited for you.
Also, I need to go back to that image that Pulp posted. I thought it was going to be a little subtle thing, and it's like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. This is
it's literally just one of the presidents, yeah.
Just comes out in a suit saying, I am the president and CEO of Square Enix.
I told you he's a full-on troll. I really thought that Peachy would like that. If you haven't played Automata, Peachy, it's real.
It's a bit anime
it's a lot.
For me.
It is a bit anime, but it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but just for the sole fact that he did that.
That is hilarious.
That's hilarious.
I'm definitely on the him train.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was anime. I would say it was just Japanese, like JRPG kind of style kind of thing. It's
and the whole reason why like they're anime, like there was like this infamous interview he did years like when the game came out. Because when they were announced it, people criticized like, oh, it's an anime girl in heels. Like, what does that have to do with anything with combat? And he's like, I just really like girls.
Yeah. No, I was saying that. I was like why is she in high heels? And he's like, high heels are hot.
He's like, I like girls. And he likes asses, and he does not hide it. It's like, God, I respect that answer so much. Like none of this, like, what was it, Hideo Kojima, who with Quiet and the way she was dressed. He's like, no, like she breathes through her skin. He's like, no, dude, I like asses.
Yeah, there's definitely one train of thought that I'm like, well, that guy's telling the truth. This guy's at least thought about how to not say the truth.
Yeah, I'm very, I have a lot of respect for people who are very bluntly honest. So when you're just going like, why is her ass hanging out? It's like, why not?
Asses are hot. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And then just rolls with it. But we waited for you to come back before we discuss this. But the announcement for the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer was revealed.
It looks so good.
I'm just going to bring the video up. Do you want to talk about your thoughts on it so far, Paul?
I don't have any real thoughts right now. I'm looking.
No thoughts and empty.
Brain empty. Tree looks good.
Well, okay, so I mean, dude, it looks really good. That's all I really have to say. And I'm a huge fan of Elden Ring in general, but I guess from to my understanding, where this DLC is going to take place is you are going to have to complete the fight against Radon and Moog, because I was looking at Twitter and a lot of people were talking about how they have to go fight Moog now. Nicola is probably going to be the main focus, and they're introducing a new. I don't know what he is yet.
So Mesmer is another child of
yes, and I watched the Vati video, and Vati's theory is that it's probably why am I forgetting everyone's name? I'm forgetting. Have you ever gotten so excited you forget
Radigan,
everything?
a child of Radigan or something like that, or something to that effect, I believe, because all of Radigan's kids are.
They have red hair.
Red hair and have a name that starts with N.
names.
Yeah. So we believe it's America and Radigan's kid.
And Nicola is supposed to be blonde, I think.
Yes.
And a child.
Yeah. So Mikla is the kid riding Torrent in the key art.
Yeah. So I think they're going to do something with the maiden Milena, and because I saw Vadi's theory was she might also be a kid of Radigan. I don't know. I'm not sure if I subscribe to that one yet, but it's possible.
Yeah, because it was based on the butterfly theory, because they saw the butterfly with smoldering ashes kind of thing, like a fiery butterfly, and they assumed it was Melena's because she gets set on fire. Spoiler alert for Elden Ring, by the way.
I do know that
they've got Mesmer, who's obviously very, very fiery, so they suspect it's actually his butterfly.
And he's got snakes. But I know that they're going to be introducing a new leveling system because of I played the DLC for only Bloodborne so far. I've yet to touch. Does Sekiro have DLC? No,
I believe so.
Okay. And I'm still playing through Dark Souls for the first time. I'm surprisingly never gone through Dark Souls. But my only experience with any of the DLC that From Software has released was for Bloodborne, and if that's any indicator to go off of, it's going to be really hard. But I'm withholding any like theories because like I said, I saw Mesmer and I was like, is that Mikola? And obviously I ate my words really fast.
Yeah.
So I'm just really excited to see what's going to happen for this one. I know that's a very big nothing burger of what I have to say about this. I'm just pure hype.
Yeah, so I also watched the Varty video, looked at a couple of the Miyazaki interviews. There's actually a really funny one that we'll touch on later as well. But generally it's believed that Mesmer was the problem child who was just like, I'm super strong and powerful, so you want to use me, but I'm also a bit of a dickhead, so fine, I'll go be the overlord of the Shadow Realm kind of thing. Yeah, but like Marika doesn't say like, oh, I'm disowning you because you're a cunt kind of thing. She goes, you're really strong, so I will keep you around, but you go look after this area for me kind of thing. Like he's still faithful to his mother despite his rebellious attitude.
Yeah.
Like Typhus in the Death Guard.
Sure. For the Emperor.
But I know that they've introduced
I'll give you one next time for the Emperor.
Like obviously, since so much of the lore is within like the text within the games, like they're just so heavily involved with that.
I like that you can pick up an item and get story from
so much information.
I like that because I can ignore that if I want to.
Yeah, and that's why like it's great, like, because I have to go through the body videos for Dark Souls because like there's so much information, like I'm so lost constantly, but I like that because you can also still kind of come up with your own theories. And I know with some of the like from the footage I've seen alone, like there's the pink butterflies that you saw, and I know Body touched on that too, because there are the rot butterflies from Millennia, and I always say their name wrong.
No, don't worry about it.
I'm sorry, I could like double back. I'm like, wait a minute. But these butterflies are like bright pink, and I think like his theory was that it's connected to Melina. It's possible, but that's why I want to withhold like any opinion or like theories until I actually get in there and see. Yeah, but I'm curious to see how the scaling is going to be and like how the leveling system is going to change.
Yeah, so they've said that there's going to be like a secondary attack leveling system, so you'll still have the regular leveler system, but the idea is that most people who are going to be experiencing the DLC will have probably already completed the game and have a kitted out like level 100 character. So if they then go into the DLC, they're going to be this overpowered beast that just tramples through it. So what they've done is actually scaled the DLC to still be harder than the current content and gives you something to still level up with. So it's a secondary system you'd use to gain power.
Like worried about that because I think my character stopped at whatever the meta is for PvP. I stopped there, and I'm on New Game Plus 4. So because I really like Elden Ring. Yeah. But so whatever like the scaling is probably not going to impact me as much as somebody like who I've played alongside like some subscribers, and like I've had people come in my game and they're like level 400 some odd, and I'm like, what the fuck? It's so high. So I think for people who didn't like stop at a level and just kept going might be impacted more by whatever the scaling system is, but I think it is more fair that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the other option would be to start an entirely new playthrough from scratch and then integrate it in.
That's what I was planning on doing anyway.
That's a valid way to do DLC, though.
I think so too, because like it's not fun to go into a DLC and you're like vastly overpowered, and then you're just destroying everything because there's no motivation to continue going. I mean, besides story elements, but there's no motivation to keep going. So having them just have a separate leveling system specific for the DLC, it keeps everyone on an even playing field, and I respect that.
Yeah.
Because like whenever I've like gone in someone's game and they're way over leveled and I don't know, and someone will invade the game, I get wrecked.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there is a gate though that they have to defeat certain bosses?
You have to defeat Mog and Radon, and Radon like is pretty because to get to Mog you have to fight Radon anyway, and both of which are optional bosses.
Right. Okay. So someone who hasn't finished the game could go to that level, defeat those bosses, and then they're allowed to go into the DLC.
Yeah. So the beauty of Elden Ring is, like we've discussed with many other games, Baldur's Gate, Path of Exile, it gives you a lot of player agency in terms of how you explore the game. You can pretty much do the game in any order you choose. You can go in a completely other direction to other people.
I actually own it and have played it.
Oh, fair. So,
like, it was so huge that even I have played a Dark Souls.
Fair.
Yeah.
So
it's probably one of the few games where like the open world worked really well in its favor.
I think it did, yeah.
Yeah, and they're keeping with that philosophy. So you don't have to have completed the game, but there are already in the base game. There are gates or quest marks that you have to surpass to unlock certain stories and things like that.
What I'm interested in is, personally, not to cut you off because you mentioned like, you know, starting it at any point. Because I'm on New Game Plus, like I said, plus 3 or plus 4, I can't remember because I had to get 3 endings. What I'm curious about is how that would impact like the DLC. If it is more like going to impact, if you are in like a plus XOD, if it's going to be that much more scaled up and just like the base game, you know what I mean?
I imagine they will, because the other scaling system runs in parallel. So I think what they're going to do is basically have it so it will scale depending on what version of New Game Plus you're on. So obviously when you do New Game Plus, everything is scaled up to account for that.
Boys and girls.
Yeah. But I think that they've basically just got a system that scales it with whatever version of New Game Plus you're in, or if you're in the base game still. And then you'll have this subsequent parallel scaling for depending on what your level is as well, kind of thing. So it'll go, okay, you're level 100 plus. So you're probably going to have monsters that are a wee bit beefier, but you've got ways to compensate for that. Obviously, we don't know the details. I do trust that From Software know what they're doing, though. So I imagine
I mean, one thing that I will like applaud them is they're really good at knowing how to balance game. Like, I mean, they did have to patch certain, like Radon, for example, with one of the bosses you have to pass to get to the DLC. He was brutal when that game first came out because I beat the game within the first week, I think, because I was really into it. And some of the bosses, like I from what I understand, had to be I know they scaled him down and then they scaled him back up. And it's just because like there's some of them were just nearly impossible.
Yeah, you had to be real sweaty for some of them.
Yeah, but what I like is it's not impossibly hard. It's not most of the mistakes whenever I'm playing through it, like I mean I get pretty worked up when I play these games, but like at least most of it's like my own error. It's not like the game is unfair.
Yeah, it's usually a skill check rather than like a gear check as well.
Demon's Souls suffers from I lost because it's jank. So I went back and I played that, and it's quite jank, and a lot of the difficulty comes from not the mechanics that they've scaled or balanced, but from why is my character not even remotely facing the right way right now? Why am I floating? Why am I stuck?
I guess, but that's an technical. I don't know. I don't know about that. I played through a little bit of Demon's Souls, and I didn't experience that, but I don't just believe.
I didn't play the remake. I played the original Demon's Souls on.
Oh well, that's an older game, so I'm.
But I had that issue with the original Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2, I found a bit better to go through. And then Dark Souls 3, I felt like, okay, the jank is not so much hindering me anymore.
Yeah.
With Elden Ring, because it's such an open world, when I got stuck, I just went somewhere else and I was fine.
Yeah.
And I was probably then
And
overpowered for the next fight because it's so open. You can do whatever you want.
And what I like is like you can do whatever you want. Like you could whatever. I like that you can't. They don't lock you into you. Like you start off as like a mage, and it's like
you can
you're
create
not
your own
locked in it.
difficulty.
You could do whatever you. Yeah, and because of the people I was playing with, and because especially like my husband, like he's really into the PvP. I kind of stuck around. I that's when I learned about the PvP meta, and I think it's like 150. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 150.
You get to pick, like there's one at 90. I think there's even one at like 40 or something.
Well, I think for Dark Souls it's 120, and then it depends. But it's, I guess it's so it doesn't get too scaled up.
I also do play those games offline.
Yeah,
because
I really
play an
like
offline game. I'm not here for a live service because, as we've all agreed, right, the live services are bad.
All games are bad. That's what we agreed.
All games are bad.
All games are bad. Yeah, but yeah, like so that's the way I learned how to play those games, because like I just have a bunch of people who are really into those games, so I play alongside the meta, and at least it's kind of nice to like. Every time you could try all these different builds, and I'm really interested to see what they're going to bring in, like new skill wise. Like I saw there was one skill like you see in the trailer with like the gold wings coming out. Like there's some really cool weapon arts that I can imagine are going to be introducing. That I want to know what the giant bomb is.
Yeah, like is it just a consumable or is it a weapon art? It could be anything.
God, it just looks so downright goofy.
It looks the same as the helmet that the Let Me Solo Her guy.
It does a little bit, yeah. True.
A little bit.
Maybe it could be like
maybe it's a reference.
That would be so cool if it was.
It's a one-use item and it can kill any boss.
to build on that, we know that they're adding 8 new weapon types. So not just weapons, but weapon types.
That's dope.
So you've got like reverse sword. So I've got a little envelope opener here.
In that trailer, I think they had a no weapon as well.
Yeah, so there's martial arts. There's like swords that usually you'd hold a sword this way, but they've got it so you hold them this way.
A sword for ants? That'll be useless.
It's an envelope opener. It's a Castlevania sword envelope opener. But
that's dope.
They've got throwing knives, so not consumable, but actual weapons that you just throw at range. I think there was a couple of other things. I thought the martial arts stuff looked sick.
Yeah,
there's the reverse swords
there's some really cool
now.
stuff that, and even still, like when you're playing even the main game, there's a lot of different stuff that you like. Some that I haven't even found.
Yeah.
And like the throwing.
Yeah, big giant.
I'm just curious about the pink butterflies, but what's interesting is there seems to be like a lot of like chimera-esque.
Is that a fully automatic crossbow?
They look like it. Yeah, that's like one of the other weapon types. There's a bunch. Like there's the bear communion things. Which
but there's kind of like some
Dragon
chimera thing going on where like there's like they seem kind of mutated. You know what I mean?
So yeah,
I'm really interested.
They've all got horns, which is a sign of the. I always forgot what they call them, but Moog was one of them. Margit was one of them with the horns.
Oh my god, I know what you're talking about. Like I said, sometimes I space. The omens.
So there's a theory that they were people that were actually around and then cursed by Marika because she wanted to take over with her religion and make the other religions look bad. Might sound like a real life reference, in fact.
That actually makes sense because it is like the shadow of the Erdtree, so it's like these rejected like entities pushed aside.
Yeah, so it's basically theorized that it's probably going to be focused on them making a comeback, as it were, that now the Elden Ring has been like taken over by a new lord, all that shenanigans. There's going to be a lot to it. They've said that the zone, the Shadow Realm, is going to be about the same size as Limgrave.
Yeah, I heard that. Limgrave's huge.
Yeah, so it's huge. It's going to be more dense than the previous zones, which I think is impressive because they're all quite dense to begin with. Miyazaki also said, yeah, it's, it's...
I think he said there was a poison swamp again, too.
We'll touch on that in a moment. But yeah, Miyazaki was basically you'll get like maybe probably another 40 or so hours of it. And it's like, you said that about Elden Ring. And how many hours did we get out of that?
He underestimated Elden Ring. I think... Like, just, and for reference sake, like, he said that, you're right, he did say that about Elden Ring. In my game alone, I have 412 hours.
Yeah, so I'm looking for, even if it was like $70, I'd be like, yeah, but it's FromSoft, so they're giving you $70 worth.
All I know is, like I said, as a frame of, my only frame of reference of their DLC was when I played the Old Hunters for Bloodborne, and that was just such a cool experience alone, like it, because it felt like it didn't even feel like a DLC at that point. It was just such a but especially if the Orphan Cause and shit. But the game, it was hard. So I know that, and I forgot how I haven't played through Elden Ring in a bit. I because I'm going through all the Souls games again, but I do remember the beginning of that game especially is pretty difficult because you can wander into the wrong area and you're scrud.
There's actually some really cool stuff in the intro to Elden. I've only got like 20 odd hours in Elden Ring. I haven't got a huge amount. But they're very good at letting you know how the world works the second you step into the world, because there's like this mounted thing that will absolutely fuck you up. And it is directly ahead of you.
I think everyone ran up to him.
Yeah, you step up and it immediately slaps you down. Immediately. It tells you from like you do the little intro bit and then you get into the world and it immediately lets you know you can't kill everything.
I respect that they don't hide the fact that you're going to be like demolished. Like the first time I played it,
I think it's smart. It's actually telling you to go somewhere else. Because you're not ready for this. Because it's not like, this was close.
I ran straight to that guy too, because I saw
think
him.
Everyone did.
Yeah, and then it's like, he's big.
He's definitely there for two reasons. The first reason is like it's not like you fight him and it's close. And you're like, if I try again, I can get him. It's not. It's like definitely, boom, you are fucked. You go somewhere else. But then,
I had
as you pass through him again, when you're stronger, you can actually fight him, and you can that power fantasy you get from these games, that it also helps with that. You're like, I remember being here.
In these games, it's very possible, because there's a lot of streamers who do it. You can go through them at level 1. I'm sure possible.
Sweaty fucking Souls-like players will absolutely go, okay, it's a challenge, I'll do that. But for most because this was a Dark Souls for everyone. Like it blew up, and the way it's built is definitely. It's not.
I think it's a lot more user friendly for sure. Because while I've been playing Dark Souls, what I've noticed, and the same thing with Bloodborne, is most people you're not gonna find everything right off the bat. Like I remember when I first played, because Bloodborne was my first, and I ran past the window for a boss that there was an item to help me with the boss, and I ended up getting destroyed, and not knowing that as you interact with everything, if you make sure you're reading everything, you're gonna understand a little bit more about where they're guiding you, and everything is connected. So there's a lot of while I've been playing Dark Souls, noticing how spoiled I got from Elden Ring, because it's like, oh shit, like I don't know where the hell to go half the time.
Elden Ring takes a very particular approach in how it teaches the player. I remember when I was in a closed test as part of a creator program for a game called Almighty Kill Your Gods. And prior to release, they basically got a bunch of the creators together to give feedback, and it was a big open call with the devs. And I spoke up and I said, listen, with all due respect, your tutorial is awful. There's so much feedback right now where people don't know how to play the game because they don't know how the moves work and how they function. You've got two options here. You can either take the easier option where you just make a dedicated tutorial area where you get players to do the thing multiple times, force them to do it to take on a certain task until they learn that move, and then they know and understand how it functions. The other way is to take the Nintendo approach, where the people who are playing the game aren't even aware they're in a tutorial. They just think it's the game, and they're being taught via the quests. And I don't mean, oh, you need to slaughter the thing by doing X command. It's just like with Mario. It's like, oh, how do you get over the obstacle? Oh, you need to jump. Oh, you jump over the obstacle. How do you then kill the Goomba? Oh, you land on the Goomba from the jump that you just did. So you're naturally progressing through the game. Elden Ring does a very, very similar thing. Like Peachy was saying, you get to a certain point, either the ballista that's firing at you or Margit behind it, the boss, and that is their way saying, maybe you're not ready for this bit. Maybe you should toddle off and go do something else. And then you'll go to another area, and then you'll go, okay.
And that's why I was saying it. Like in this case, like it's definitely open world done very well.
Yes.
Because like I think, my first experience, like because all of us were my friends and I, we were very excited. And we did we're trying to join up on each other because let's go check it out together. And at one point I wandered off into the swamp right behind Limgrave because I was like, well, I can't kill that guy. And instead I got met with a dragon to my face. And I was like, oh yeah.
And that's the thing though.
So that was how I learned really fast. Don't wander just anywhere because there's a dragon in them swamps.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's teaching moments. You're always been taught, you're not just being punished, it's the game's way of saying, maybe you need to approach this differently, maybe you need to come back and level up, maybe you need to do this. And then it pushes the player to explore, and then the act of exploring in Elden Ring itself is just super satisfying because everything had meaning. It wasn't just, here's a random bandit camp, kill the bandits for poops and giggles, oh, there's a chest, kind of thing. There was always lore or something. Like Peachy was saying earlier, you can technically ignore all the text in the game and not listen to a single thing, but you will still know about the lore because it's taught to you through the world. When you approach the castle that Margit's in, there's a big fucking hole in it, and you're like, oh, sounds like something blasted a hole in it. And then you get and fight, I've forgotten the king that's in the castle, but then you end up fighting the
Godric.
Yeah, one of the G's, many G's.
Yeah, there's
and then
there's
he's got
two
that
of
dragon
them that
head.
have very similar names. A lot of them have similar names, so forgive me if I ever
no,
screw
good.
that up.
I think everyone mixes them up, to be fair. But yeah, so then you're fighting him, and you're like, oh, there's a dragon head, probably the same dragon that blasted the hole in the castle, kind of thing. And it teaches you the narrative through the world just by looking at things. You see the people that you're fighting are wearing a certain tabard, so it's like, oh, it looks like the Radan knights have taken over this place, and it was because of a war. And then you suddenly see one of Godric's old knights hanging around there, and he's like, yeah, we were sent here because of X, Y, and Z reason. And likewise, he's wearing armor that's specific to that army and things like that. Everything has meaning, and everything is teaching you something in Elden Ring. Do we want to wrap up, or are we good for time to just blast through the last few topics?
I'd really like to skip to the last topic on the agenda because on the second half agenda, because that's awesome.
Oh, the outrage for Microsoft. So there, over the last few weeks, has been a lot of outrage because there was a rumor that exclusives were being released to other platforms, such as Starfield, believe Gears of War was thrown about, things like that. There were content creators who specialize in Xbox, which I've always found a little bit odd, but that's just me, who were like, I'm quitting this, I'm not going to make Xbox content anymore, blah, 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 and really having a rage about it.
Probably a pinch of salt, because content creators going to create when you do that.
I think there have been a couple who have just straight up quit though, but in response, Microsoft were like, we're going to do a business update, I believe was the wording they used, next week, hang about, we'll explain things, blah, blah, blah. Then the response to that was largely, this could have been a tweet, because it was basically, no, we're not giving our exclusives to other platforms, but we are releasing other games that are on Game Pass onto other platforms. So I think Hi-Fi Rush was one of them, Pentinent.
It's a great game.
Both of them are good games. I think there was another two, I think it was 4 in total. And they were like, yeah, you can get these on PlayStation or Switch or whatnot. And then people are like, oh, okay, cool. Now, I think it makes a very, very compelling discussion because there are valid arguments from both sides for the people who don't want exclusives to go to other platforms and for those who do. I lean more into one camp, but I understand why people got upset. I think they were a bit silly to get outraged and quit their creating career and things like that. Grounded in Sea of Thieves. That was it. Thank you, Ravaging. So I'm going to ask for Peachy's take first before I go into the perspectives that I've heard. What's your take on Microsoft potentially in the future? Because I think this is a test. They're testing the water here, to be honest. Let's be real. What do you think is good or bad or both about exclusives going to other platforms?
Exclusives are bad for gaming in general.
Right.
When you argue for an exclusive, it's because you are on Team PlayStation, right?
Yes.
Or PC, whatever. Like when you're like, oh, I want exclusives because they're on my platform. That is just tribalism, which I think is bad for gaming. Games should be available on different platforms because that will make games better. That will make platforms better because you choose a platform not because what games it's got on it, but because it gives you what you specifically want from gaming. So like if there's games on multiples, like Call of Duty, let's say Call of Duty, you're probably going to want to, like, the largest install base of Call of Duty is probably a console, right?
PlayStation, I believe, is the
probably PlayStation.
statistic.
I would guess PlayStation because it's, you know, it's quite PlayStation, but that's available on other platforms. Now, people aren't playing that on a Switch. That would probably play terrible on a Switch, right? Your doesn't matter what platform you got. Like, say I've got multiple platforms. I've got a Switch. I don't have any of the other consoles, but I've got games on PC that I've been like, this would be better on Switch because I can sit on a couch. I can play it on the toilet or whatever. That means that that console has something better than the other platform, not the game, which will make games better because people are going to play how they want to play the games, which is better. Like PlayStation, what is it? Play the way you want to play, even though that's corporate bullshit. But that's how games should be. And exclusives just stifle everything. Games should be available. If it doesn't run on a platform, okay, sure. Like, but exclusive, you can't sell this anywhere else. Is just it lengthens the divide between different gamers. Like Final Fantasy. First it was on PlayStation. I'm like, okay, I'll wait a year. Then it came on Epic as another exclusive. I'm like, well, I can't be arsed with this. And then at this point, I still haven't played Final Fantasy, even though I was interested in it when I first saw it. So I've not played that game because I can't be bothered to experience that because I couldn't get it on PC till now. And at that point, no one gives a shit about it. And it's no longer in my zeitgeist. That game is dead to me. I'll never pick that game up unless it's the price of a sandwich, which is Squeenix. It won't be. But I'll never pick that game up. And now I am disconnected from other gamers. And I like games. Like games aren't all bad. They're not. That's a meme, obviously. Exclusives just separate gamers into tribes, and it's the gamers are the same. It doesn't matter what platform you play on. You should be able to play whatever game you want on whatever platform benefits you the most. Not, oh, you can't play. You're a dick if you're like, oh, you can't play that game, but I can. You don't like games, you just like lording it over people. It's bad for games, and I think it stifles developers and progression of games. That's where I think about exclusives. But you're saying they're testing the waters. For a long time, we've had Xbox games on PC, and no one has said anything because that's not the tribe, is it? It's the tribes
to be fair, it is specifically through Game Pass, though, so you're still in the Xbox ecosystem.
Yes, that is true. That is true. But it's on my platform, right? Yes, I have to go to a different store, but it is on my platform. I can even buy the pass for that platform on Steam, I think.
Possibly.
I know you can with EA.
Not sure about Game Pass, but quite possibly.
But no one cares about that because it's not a console. They're just tribalism, PlayStation versus Xbox. So this is the problem, Childs. It's PlayStation, Xbox, even though there are plenty of other platforms that don't care.
Pope, do you have anything to add?
I agree with everything Peachy's saying.
Okay.
I mean about the fact that
I've been agreed with.
I do. Like, I think that exclusives are bad for gaming. So I have nothing to add.
I do have things to add. So I'm in the boat of I always see the argument that exclusives are good for competition. They do, incentivize competition. It's true, but there are better ways to do that. So I don't think that is a valid argument to maintain exclusivity. I do think exclusives are bad. The more platforms, the more accessible it is, the better for gamers, especially if they introduce cross-platform support so you can play with more friends, etc. There is one argument that I do not see as a valid argument for exclusivity, but more of a valid reason to be mad if you have invested in a particular ecosystem. And that is majorly the point. You've invested in it. At some point, most people have to make a choice. Do I get an Xbox or do I get a PlayStation? And then they go, okay, well, PlayStation has these exclusives that have been done for years, so it's the normal. They expect there to be exclusives. Or do I go for Xbox because there are these exclusives? You then invest in that platform, you invest in that ecosystem. Yes, there is tribalism, and I think console war people are batshit crazy and don't at me kind of thing. I think you're literally insane. But there are people who've gone, okay, I've invested the money that I have available to me to get a console because it's got these exclusives on it. And then suddenly those exclusives are now on other platforms. And had you known that in the future when you made your purchasing decision, you may have gone, well, PlayStation has these exclusives and it's going to get the Xbox ones later anyway. So I'll get the PlayStation. So it is something that could have retroactively had an impact on your investment. Obviously, that depends on like privilege and stuff like that. Like at one point, I was privileged enough to be able to afford all the consoles, and I literally had. On the same day, I made a savings account. I bought a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One at the same time. Like I was in a position to do that, but not everyone's in that position, you know?
Yeah.
So some people go, okay, well, I've bought the Xbox, and then suddenly the reason that they bought it and made that hundreds of dollars investment has just gone. Do you see what I mean?
agree with that.
So I do think that's a valid reason to be upset, but not a valid reason to argue for exclusivity in the first place, if you know what I mean.
I can agree with that. Because that leads into itself not having exclusives, and you're making the best financial decision to get the platform that's best for you rather than the games that are
and PS4 or PS3 and 360 era, that was like when, you know, it was a little bit more difficult for me to make. I had to weigh out my own, like I had to have that same make that decision where I think I opted for the 360 over the PS3 because at the time there were not more exclusives were my were more catering to my interests on the 360 at the time. And then it's I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. So
I really don't have much to add on this.
No, that's fair. I thought it was interesting.
You're allowed to agree. Yeah. We are allowed to agree with each other sometimes.
Yeah, I
know. It's like I don't like. I mean, it really boils down to the same. Like I can see the benefit in exclusives, like how that would, you know, that could potentially benefit sales when it comes to making that decision, especially when it comes to consoles exclusives. But from what I read an article not too long ago, I forgot who published it, so I apologize, but it was in regards to the PS5 and how it failed as a system in regards to the lack of exclusives that it had. And I didn't really think about that too much. Because I know that they've already been discussing, or it's been announced, or there hasn't many reveals for PS6. I've been really under a rock lately.
There's been like hints and rumors.
I know there've been talks, but nothing shown.
Yeah, nothing officially said.
Yeah, and it's actually something kind of when because I've seen like talking about the PS6 at all, and I'm like, my brain first off went like, I only just got my PS5, what the hell? And also, but when I stumbled across an article that was the take on it was that the PS5 in and of itself fails as when it comes to the exclusives, and I didn't even notice that until when they started listing them off. I'm like, holy shit, there really weren't that many.
Yeah.
And as a consumer, like kind of like how Final Fantasy Rebirth is going to eventually end up on PC. So right now they have the exclusivity rights on that now, but like what is the incentive besides the only reason why I own a PS5 was I know I wanted to play Demon's Souls at one point, and my PS4 was just like there's just some games that, like for example Ragnarok, I don't know if that's on Xbox at all.
No, that's
I don't think so. No, God of War is not.
That's first party.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I was just I'm because I always say the first, but
the original,
the previous God of War is on Steam. So eventually that one's going to end up on Steam as well. But at the time I was playing Ragnarok when it came out, when I got my PS5 finally. So when I saw, Final Fantasy 4 or remake be released on Steam, it's like as a PlayStation owner, it's like, well, what the fuck? I could have just waited.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm always happy to see more players being able to have access to games like that. But it does, like, as the consumer, of like when you buy something specifically for the exclusivity, then it's like you kind of like fall like in the middle of both, like, you don't want to, like, I don't think it's cool that I bought this specifically for this and now it's just on a PC anyway,
There are,
on the other foot, if there's an exclusive on the other platform that comes to your platform. Good,
no,
right?
that's why I said I fall in the middle of it, because when it comes to my platform or my preferred platform, I'm stoked. Like, I know with
Did you get your PlayStation because you wanted a PlayStation experience, or because the games that were exclusive to what you wanted?
So before I started streaming, it wasn't until I started streaming when I started playing on PC. Like, I'm relatively new to the PC gaming experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been streaming for like 5 years. So I've only been really playing PC gaming for 5 years. And it's primarily because before I could not afford a gaming PC. And also it wasn't like high on my priority list. I wasn't really, I game a lot more now than I did, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I would buy gaming consoles, because I started as a console gamer. So I would buy consoles catering to my interests. So I bought a 360, but when it came to the Xbox One and the PS4, I opted for the PS4 because for the same reason I opted for the 360. It catered more to my interests at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't bought an Xbox system in a while. Like, the last one I've owned was the 360. So when I started PC gaming now, the only reason specifically why I wanted a PS5 was there were some games on the PlayStation that I could only play on the PlayStation 4. And when Ragnarok came out, I was playing on PS4, and my PS4 sounded like a jet engine. It was struggling so hard. And there are some games too, like, for example, when we were talking about Alan Wake is a game that, even though I know it's exclusive to Epic, I believe, a game like that, I would just prefer to play it on console, just because, like, I don't know how like, my computer is pretty beefy. It's probably not as good as both of yours, but it does its job.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some games where, like, I'll see the specs and I'm like, I'm not even gonna fuck with that on my PC. So it is nice to kind of fall back to having the PS5, where it's like, at least I know it's going to be capable of running these things without me having a second thought. It's kind of a nice, like, worry to throw out the window, because it's like, well, at least I can play my game and I'm not going to have to worry about it, bogging down.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's well established that games that are usually cross-platform or multi-platform, more specifically, more often than not run better on the console, because it's easier to develop for. Like,
they know exactly what the specs are.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, literally having a different brand of mouse can fuck up your game. Like, I can't remember who it was. There was
funny. It's such a
Logitech
rarity.
ones.
No, there was an interview where a dev was basically talking about optimizing the game, and there was a Razer mouse that just fucked with the game, like one specific brand or model of Razer mouse, and they had to, like, find out, like, they had to ascertain that was the mouse that was causing the issue through bug reports and stuff. So yeah, just literally a smaller difference as just a brand of mouse can bug your game out.
Yeah, and it's wild because, like, I just before I drop, like, my point, like, even like something as simple as, like, for example, I just picked up Persona 3 Reload when that just came out, and you're right. When it comes to optimization, like there's a lot of times when a game I know for a fact has always come out on a console, I feel safer buying it on a console. Like just like purely because like of circumstances, like since we were just talking about Automata, when that ported over onto PC, it was garbage. Utter garbage. You even mentioned like Final Fantasy VII Remake was kind of struggling at first.
You've been a PC gamer for not very long. It's actually only in recent years where these cross-platform games have actually been ported well. Like early Dark Souls, no, it was a terrible port.
I heard, I've heard
pretty much all of them.
The reason why I bring
a lot of the AAAs were terrible.
The reason why I bring up Persona 3 Reload is because that game shocked the hell out of me. I bought it on Steam, and that game runs so well, surprisingly, for a game that I would have because Persona 5 and Royal and all that, they came out on PS4 initially, and I don't know. I have them on PC. I haven't played them, so I don't know how they perform. But when I opted to go for Steam this time for Reload. And I was like, oh shit. And immediately I was like, oh shit, like I'm really hoping this thing runs even well, because it's, we've almost like, I've come to expect games to like not run well right away. And very pleasantly surprised. It runs very like I have it on ultra settings, and on my PC, I don't have a 4070. It runs beautifully well. It's very surprising.
Mine and Brian's PCs are outside of the majority of PCs. So if a developer is going to optimize the game, they're going to look, what's the biggest? Okay, let's make sure it works on these. Great, because most people don't have crazy ass PCs. I only have a crazy ass PC because of the work I do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're actually going to find games will run better for you. Like I'm starting a game and I expect to play it maximum ultra in quad HD. And games don't like to do that.
No, it's very true.
When you're playing at what most people have for gaming at like high settings, for general gaming, it's going to run pretty well. You'll more often than not, you'll be in a good position with not a budget rig, but a sensible gaming rig.
I often use the Steam's hardware survey as like a pointer for people when they go, oh, the game doesn't even have support for like quad HD or ultra wide. And I'm like, here's a survey that shows that only about 2% of people on Steam have an ultra wide. That's why they haven't developed it. The most common series of cards is usually the ones that end in 60. So like the 9060, the 1060, the 2060, 3060, 4060. They are almost always the most popular card by a massive margin. Like it's usually anything from like 50 to 75%, and then the other cards are broken up into that remaining like 25%.
With hardware as well, R&D is focused on that market because that's when most people are like, okay, I'm gonna spend this much on a card. Because you don't go, oh, I want this card, like I do, because I need that kind of stuff. But most people are like, okay, that's a bit cheap. I need something a bit better than that. That's way too expensive. There we go. That's my card. And it is usually a 60, maybe a 70 or a 60 Ti, something like that.
Right.
Just to bring it back to Microsoft, though, another thing that people are concerned about, which I'm surprised that they didn't see it coming, but Phil Spencer has been on record and said, we've lost the console war. Like, they've said they made a mistake too big in the Xbox, in the last gen, let's say, and it's continued through to this gen, and PlayStation and Nintendo are winning. So a lot of people have interpreted that to be that Xbox has just given up on hardware. And that is something that has upset people, again, who have invested in those ecosystems. I'm surprised they didn't see it coming, though, because we've already seen the leaks about the future consoles. The refresh that we're getting in a year or so is hybrid. We've already seen leaks that they're going to go more and more digital and go leaning into the cloud services thing. And the Xbox's whole spiel for the last year or so has been play our games anywhere kind of thing. Get Game Pass on Nintendo. Maybe that will be the dream. Maybe Game Pass on PlayStation. Things like that. That's the dream. Obviously, I don't think PlayStation will do that. But they do seem to be not giving up on hardware, but it's no longer the race that it was. They're not pushing to win the the console race. They just
making a console that loses their money and then they earn their money back later on with games.
Yeah. So rather than like investing lots of money into the console that they were selling at a loss, they can just make the digital only, the cloud-based consoles that you can have really cheap anywhere, and then invest more into the games, which is why they've just bought Activision Blizzard for 70 million. It's why they own Bethesda and ZeniMax and all those studios.
70 billion.
70 billion. Yes, many, many monies. So do we wish to continue or should we wrap up?
I need to eat.
I have some work I need to take care of.
Yeah, no worries.
Unfortunately, I would love to stick around, but I have a deadline to meet.
Oh, cool. Let's jump into shout outs then. So Pulp, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Pulp Fictionally. I'm a former Instagram model turned variety streamer. You can find me on all my social media under Pulp Fictionally, except for Twitter because someone stole my name. I am currently streaming again. Finally, I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I keep wanting to say remake, and I will be back on tomorrow. I'm not sure, but usually around 5:30 is when I stream Pacific Standard Time to continue that. And I will, and after that, I'm continuing on playing all of the Souls series, and it should be tons of fun. Just kind of having a relaxing time lately. Nothing serious. Peachy.
Hi, I'm Peachy Pixelate. I am the token Warhammer nerd on the Fully Rendered podcast. Tomorrow I'll be playing Project Zomboid. I think I'm going to take a look at The Long Dark next week on Thursday, something like that.
Long Dark.
If you're into miniature gaming, go check out my YouTube. There is some painting tutorials there. And yeah, that's good. Brian.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian the Pirate. Thank you, as always, to my co-hosts. You have been fantastic. We've been great, as it were. If you wish to find me on other platforms, I'm available on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, etc. All under Brian the Pirate, nice and simple. If you're into action RPG games, especially, I would very much suggest looking at the YouTube, where I do a lot of videos about Diablo 4, Last Epoch, Path of Exile. I do build guides, reviews, etc., etc. So go give that a ganders. The schedule for the next week or so is basically me blasting Last Epoch and making Last Epoch videos. So do feel free to drop by the Twitch stream. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us. Check out the Patreon, where this episode will be uploaded to immediately tomorrow if you have only caught the last end of it, for example, things like that. And then, of course, on YouTube next weekend. Thank you all very much for watching. Farewell. We'll remember you.
I won't.
You won't.